for today's movie review, I'll be reviewing the 1989 mech anime film Patlabor, the movie. The film is directed by Mamoru Oshii, the same guy who created such beloved anime films from Angel's Egg, Ghost in the Shell, to The Skycrawlers. And before I go any further into this movie review, no, I have not seen or read anything related to the Patlabor franchise, so essentially I'm going into this movie blindly, which leads me into one of three scenarios. The first scenario being, was I supposed to watch the anime to understand the movie? Second scenario, is the movie its own thing that has nothing to do with the anime? And third scenario, is Patlabor the movie similar to Cowboy Bebop the movie in that sense of it takes place within the context of the anime, but you really don't need to watch the anime to understand the movie? I got no idea. Which leads into my big question. Should I have watched or read anything related to the Patlabor franchise before viewing this movie? As for the plots of the movie, sometime after a software engineer commits suicide, a special police force investigates a series of unusual robot malfunctions throughout Tokyo. And as more robots continue to malfunction, the special police force must figure out the link between the mysterious suicide along with these robot malfunctions before a disastrous event occurs. In terms of what I liked about the movie, the animation is really good, moves very fluently. Although I think my one little nitpick about the animation is certain details don't hold up very well, but it's just a nitpick. And the soundtrack to the movie is fascinating because it's a lot of rock music and electronic music, not mixed together, but they do definitely feature a lot of tracks that are both rock and electronic. And I'm trying to remember, you don't think it's gonna work, but the movie finds a way to make the music flow naturally throughout the story. The pacing to the movie is really good, and I just love the way the movie progresses, because my one gripe with the movie is there's not a lot of action involving mechs throughout the entire thing, but there is plenty of stuff going on with the humans to keep a person entertained. And I kind of like the role of the main villain because you only see him for like one scene, and that's the very beginning of the movie in which he commits suicide, but his influence is felt throughout the entire movie. And to me, having a villain who's been dead from the very start of the movie where his plans affecting the entire film, I thought it was very interesting, because when was the last time you watched a movie like this where a villain's dead from the start of the movie, but their plan's in motion and the characters try to figure out what the fuck that plan is? I can't name another movie like it at the moment. I also really like the variety of robot design seen in the movie, regardless if it's the robots that the police officers use that look very Gundam-esque to some of the civilian robots, like the big bulky robots that the construction workers use throughout the movie. I also really like how the robots are treated in the movie, because when you look at something like Gundam, the Gundams themselves are treated like weapons of war, because they are weapons of war. With the giant robots seen within this movie, they're treated like everyday vehicles, regardless if it's like a car, truck, or even some construction equipment. And I think because of this movie is a very unconventional take on the giant robot genre, because you look at a lot of people say that Gundam is the start of the realistic robots. And in my opinion, I think that this is the Gundam idea fully realized, because the robots in this movie don't have any beam swords, they're not flying around in space, they're just down on Earth and they're treated like everyday vehicles, as opposed to being a weapon of war. In terms of what I disliked about the movie, some shots of aircrafts flying over the sea look really oddly animated. I'm not sure why, but they did. And sometimes the subtitles go by a bit too fast. Granted, I did watch this in Japanese, but it wasn't too fast to a point where I couldn't understand what was going on. And there's a lot of characters within the story that appear without introduction. And as I continue to watch the movie, I'm trying to sit here and figure out who are these characters and what is their significance to the rest of the cast of characters. It feels like I needed to watch the animated TV show to get some of the characters in relation to one another. And for a movie about giant mechs, there is not a lot of giant mech action going on, because you have a lot of mech action going on at the very beginning and the very end. But throughout, not much happens. But like I said earlier, there's enough going on with the human aspect of the story to keep the viewer entertained. And that I didn't mind so much. But again, the movie is not meant to be an action flick involving robots. It's meant to be a mature mystery that does include robots, but they're not necessarily supposed to be the main focus. Also, there's some points near the end of the movie that just didn't really add up, like what's with the birds in the control room. Like, none of the characters ever mention or address the birds throughout the entire movie. Granted, I do think that maybe there was some metaphorical aspect to the birds that I'm not seeing, but again, no one mentions the birds. I also had a few problems with the way the movie ended, more specifically the last 10 minutes, because those last 10 minutes felt really rushed to me, since I said earlier that the movie had some really good pacing, but then the last 10 minutes of the movie happened, and not only does the movie's pacing increase drastically, but something about the way the movie comes to its resolution just didn't sit well with me. I'm not sure why, but it did. Also, we don't really know the fate of a lot of the characters in the movie because some characters might have gone to like an accident or something and we don't ever see those characters ever again. Also, I didn't really fully understand the main villain of the movie in terms of personality, mannerisms, or his overall motivation for what he does in the movie. Because he's dead when the movie starts, but we do feel his presence for the remainder of the movie. And sure, there are some points in time where we do learn a little bit about him in terms of his occupation of being a software engineer. He moved around a lot, and he took some influence from a lot of biblical stuff, which may have led into his overall motivation for doing what he does in the movie, but we still don't fully understand him as a character. Like, what was he like at the office? Was he a really nice person, or was he creepy as hell? We just don't know. So for my final verdict of Patlabor the movie, despite there not being a lot of mech action, I do think that there is a lot going on plot-wise to keep the viewer entertained, since the movie's more of a mystery thriller as opposed to a actual giant robot action movie. Although I probably should have watched a few episodes of the Patlabor anime to understand some of the support cast, but as the movie sits, you understand them well enough that'll get you through the movie. And I do think that the movie is genuinely entertaining from start to finish. So overall, I do think that Patlabor the movie is a very unconventional take on the giant robot genre that is worth watching. And before I give my final rating, what did everyone else have to say about Patlabor the movie? Looks like the movie got generally good reception. And so for my final rating of Patlabor the movie, I give it 3.5 out of 5. So what's your favorite movie revolved around mechs? And see you later.